right, what's going on? It is week 3 of my journal here. Yeah, it was a pretty slow week, just because I didn't get to go to as many classes as I wanted to once again. Had a little bit going on Monday, and then on Wednesday, they actually changed the schedule this month, so it's sort of a off-cycle month for the Combatives program in the evening. And then during the daytime, I had something come up at work. So far, I've only been able to go to 2 classes this week, and I guess that doesn't include the master series that one of our teachers is doing right now. So overall, it was a pretty good week. We worked on a couple things that I hadn't worked on before, things that I have worked on before, trap and roll. Got to work on that in that master series class, which I think has actually been really great in terms of just sort of getting some of the basic fundamentals. But yesterday we worked on Headlock Defense, which was a lot of fun. Didn't really, think that despite being in a headlock, you could get to so many advantageous positions from there. So had a lot of fun. Got to practice the arm bar from that, as well as just getting, mount control, getting different positions on your opponent depending on what they're trying to do. So, take the back and arm bar, at least in the Combatives program. That's what we got. I'm sure that there's more, but it's a lot of fun doing that. The other piece that I got to work on this week, I don't quite remember off the top of my head. So let's see. We're approaching our 20th class, which will mean that we get a stripe on our belt, which is pretty cool. Get a little bit of visible progress, but it must have been the elevator sweep from guard, which was a cool one. Let's see, if I'm remembering correctly, you sort of lift up your opponent and basically lift up their hips and lift up their torso via their arm and their leg, and then you flip them over. And that was a lot of fun. I'm enjoying learning some of the escapes, and I find that the escapes are some of the most fun because you have to be a little bit explosive to get some of the escapes. Obviously, elevator sweep, you're doing a lot of the work with just sort of getting them off balance, and that's where the nuance probably starts to come in, I have to imagine. But yeah, overall, it was a great week, enjoyable. Things I'm thinking about are how to escape the different positions and how to, once you get into rolling, how you can sort of play the mind games of, oh, I'm going to signal to my uke or, your opponent that you're sparring with that I'm going to go for one thing and then switch it up at the last moment to go for a different thing. So I don't know what that would even look like, Americana to an armbar. I don't know if that's a thing. Stuff like that I find really interesting. And then sort of the counter to that of, oh, I know that this person likes the armbar and they're trying to go for some kind of Americana, and they're probably hoping that I do some kind of thing to counter the Americana, and then they'll throw the armbar on me. So I'm going to instead anticipate that and, whatever, take the back. I don't know if any of that sequence makes any sense because I haven't done any rolling, but that's the kind of stuff that I'm thinking about. And I'm also trying to not think too hard into some of that stuff, just because I know right now, being that I haven't gone to all of the Combatives classes and therefore don't have all those foundational pieces yet, I'm trying to just sort of get down some of those foundations before I start moving into how all of the pieces sort of build on each other or interact with each other. I have experience in Aikido. I mentioned that on the channel before. With Aikido, it's very much a similar thing. You learn, some of the basic wrist locks, you learn Kodagaishi, you learn Nikyo, Sankyo, etc. But you don't really learn until you get more into the flow. Why is this one called, lock 1? Why is this one called lock 2? Why is this one called lock 3? And you sort of learn that over time as oh, I messed up this technique, therefore I should go for this technique. I messed up, this technique and they did this, and so my reaction should be this other technique. So that's where my mind is going at with Jiu Jitsu. But again, I'm still also trying to focus on some of the more mechanical stuff, some of the just, for example, with the armbar, I'm sitting on my opponent and I need to lean over so that I can get my leg around their head and then, slide down their back, get the armbar. things like that I'm still trying to keep mindful of, but it is hard. It is hard. I'm a all or nothing kind of guy, so I get really excited. So I just kind of got to keep reminding myself that I'm here to learn. That's all I got for this week. In the coming week, I have a little bit more free time, so I should be able to go to more classes. So excited for that. And this will probably be the first time that I'm getting some repeat classes back to back in the cycle. So I could really work on refining some of those, getting some of the finer details of each technique. And that should be fun. So next time we chat will be after that, and look out, because I might have a stripe. No, just kidding. Interested to see if folks are watching this, what you think. Otherwise, I think I mentioned this in the first episode. This is really for me to be able to go back and revisit just down the road and see sort of progress wise where I started and how I've developed over my journey here. So thanks. Talk to you next week.